On Christmas Eve in 2004, an American couple named Maria and Henry arrived in Phuket, Thailand, with their 3 children, preparing to spend an unforgettable Christmas holiday. Their eldest son Lucas and his 2 younger brothers were all filled with excitement about this overseas trip. This happy family of 5 released sky lanterns at a seaside resort, making wishes for the coming new year. On Christmas morning, the parents used a camera to record the joyful moments as their children opened their presents. Among the gifts, a red ball became the children's favorite toy. They chased each other on the white sandy beach and explored the clear blue sea while snorkeling, fully enjoying their carefree time together. On the morning of December 26th, while the whole family was sunbathing by the pool, disaster suddenly struck. First, flocks of birds took flight in panic. Then rows of palm trees collapsed one after another. Finally, a massive wave nearly 10 meters high came crashing down. After the waters gradually receded, the mother and son each managed to find floating debris not far from each other. As the current weakened, they held tightly onto one another, clinging to a floating coconut tree, their fear beyond words. When the water level dropped further, they began searching for a way to escape. After leaving the flooded area, Lucas realized that his mother's clothes had been torn apart by the impact. Her lower leg had suffered a severe injury and was bleeding heavily. Although Maria was a doctor and could perform basic first aid on herself, her mobility was greatly impaired. Lucas supported his mother as they struggled toward the resort, which had already been reduced to ruins. Just outside the resort, they heard a child crying for help in the distance. Although Lucas hesitated, believing the risk was too great, Maria insisted on going to rescue the child. She could not stop thinking that the child might be one of her own. After searching for some time, they finally rescued a strange child trapped among a pile of dead branches. By then, Maria was severely exhausted, and no one knew when the floodwaters might surge again. They decided to climb a tree to seek safety. Lucas and the child were agile enough to climb easily, but Maria's injured leg could no longer support her weight. Without hesitation, Lucas crouched down and used his thin shoulders to lift his mother. He successfully placed her in a safe position. Although everything happened in just a short moment, when they finally had time to breathe, the sight below them felt like the end of the world. The ruined resort and the victims buried in the mud left them in a state of shock and disbelief. After an unknown amount of time, villagers finally arrived to help. However, the rescuer was an elderly man who could only drag Maria forward. Branches scattered across the ground caused Maria unbearable pain, and she fainted several times. When she woke up, she found herself at a relief station. The villagers used dismantled doors to make stretchers and carried them to the hospital. Inside the hospital, chaos was everywhere. After receiving treatment, Maria was placed on a bed in the main hall to rest. Lucas stayed by his mother's side, filled with worry. Maria smiled and comforted him, saying that she would be fine. However, just moments after directing Lucas to help a patient nearby who was coughing up blood, Maria herself suddenly began vomiting blood. Her condition rapidly weakened. Even so, Maria still asked Lucas to help people search for their missing family members. Lucas carried a small notebook, writing down the names of relatives of foreign tourists. He walked through the hospital, calling out these names again and again. After a long time, he finally helped reunite a father and son. Filled with satisfaction, Lucas rushed back to share the good news with his mother. But when he returned to her bed, he found it completely empty. Lucas was instantly overwhelmed with panic and began searching everywhere for medical staff. Unable to find his family, he was sent to a children's relief center for registration. At that moment, the strong-willed Lucas finally broke down and shed tears of sorrow. Meanwhile, Henry miraculously woke up from the rubble. He found the red ball that symbolized hope, along with his 2 younger sons. However, he still had no information about the whereabouts of Maria and Lucas. This left him deeply anxious. After careful consideration, he decided to let his younger sons evacuate with the relief organization first. After repeatedly giving instructions, he watched them board the rescue vehicle. Henry then chose to stay behind in the disaster zone to continue searching for his wife and son. At night, the disaster area was plunged into complete darkness. With the power supply cut off, everything became even more difficult. Henry groped his way forward in the dark and was badly injured after tripping over debris. Fortunately, a rescue worker discovered him in time and provided necessary assistance. That evening, survivors gathered together and shared their experiences. A kind person lent Henry a phone, and he immediately called his family back in the United United States. When he learned that his wife and children had not contacted anyone, his heart tightened instantly. The grown man could not hold back his tears. Encouraged by those around him, Henry soon regained his composure and decided to continue searching. At the same time, Lucas endured a long and anxious period at the Children's Relief Center. One day, someone brought him his mother's watch and jewelry. Only then did he finally learn of his mother's whereabouts. It turned out that after being taken to the hospital, the chaos caused a misunderstanding. However, even worse news soon arrived. Maria's condition was extremely critical, and her injured leg had turned from red to black. Lucas was heartbroken. The next day, Henry began traveling between hospitals in search of his wife and son. Unfortunately, not only did he fail to find Maria and Lucas, even his two younger sons were taken away by child welfare services. He was powerless to stop it. When he arrived at the last hospital, the driver generously gave him 5 minutes to search. Henry anxiously rushed through the hospital corridors. He nearly passed by Maria's hospital bed because the curtain had been drawn. At that moment, Lucas, who had gone to fetch water, happened to see his father's back. He desperately called out to him, but Henry had already hurried away, preparing to head to the next search location. Just as the vehicle was about to start, Henry suddenly spotted a red ball on the ground. It was his son's toy. At the same time, Lucas used all his strength to shout. Fate was about to reunite them. Hearing Lucas's voice, the two younger brothers immediately responded. They had already boarded a child welfare vehicle, preparing to leave. They jumped off the vehicle and tightly embraced their older brother. Henry rushed over toward the sound. The family was finally reunited. Lucas led his father to Maria's hospital bed. At this point, Maria was extremely weak, with dark circles around her eyes and a vacant gaze. As a doctor, she knew clearly that her condition was not optimistic. Just then, medical staff arrived and rushed Maria back into surgery. The father and 3 sons waited anxiously outside, filled with unease and fear. They hoped for the joy of family reunion, yet feared facing unbearable loss. At the entrance of the operating room, Maria encountered the patient who had previously been coughing up blood. The woman, who had remained silent before, finally spoke. She told Maria that she had conserved her strength so she could last long enough to see her family one last time. Deeply moved, Maria reflected on her own struggle to hold on, hoping to see her husband and children again. After anesthesia, Maria seemed to return to the moment when the tsunami struck. In her hallucination, she struggled desperately and finally broke through the surface of the water. After the difficult surgery, she survived. The family could finally return home together without losing anyone. Having endured a life and death ordeal, they cherished each other even more as they faced the future together. The film, The Impossible, is adapted from the true experience of a Spanish family during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Through restrained visual language and profound emotional depth, the film breaks away from the grand narrative of traditional disaster films. It focuses instead on individual spiritual transformation and family bonds in extreme situations. The film is titled as a miracle, yet it does not merely celebrate survival as coincidence. Through the separation and reunion of Maria's family, the director explores deeper themes revealed by disaster. These include the awakening of humanity amid destruction. The film received criticism for turning real tragedy into genre storytelling. Scholar Gonzalez accused it of building a reunion ending upon the deaths of hundreds of thousands. However, the director achieves ethical balance through restrained depiction of suffering. Scenes of mass casualties appear only briefly, shifting focus to the living rather than exploiting the dead. The closing credits list real casualty statistics, placing individual miracles within a vast tragedy. This guides audiences from emotion toward reflection on the fragility of life. The Impossible goes beyond the tear-jerking function of typical disaster films. It acts as a mirror, reflecting both the smallness and greatness of humanity in the face of fate. As sunlight shines through the airplane window onto the surviving family, viewers see more than a miracle. They witness how love and faith illuminate the meaning of survival. As the elderly woman said, "Dead stars still shine across the universe, and the light of humanity is enough to illuminate the deepest darkness." Thank you for watching another movie with us. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode.